I have the pleasure today of introducing our next guest, Mark Petersen, the founder and CEO at Global Communication Group, Inc. Mark has 30 years of experience in voice, data, cloud, and cybersecurity. And Global Communication Group serves as a technology consultant. They're a one-stop shop for your technology solutions and services. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Let's say I'm a small organization. When should I start thinking about cybersecurity and where should I begin?
That's a good question. So ultimately, every business, large and small, which would include non-for-profits, law firms, healthcare, financial, they need to end up in a place where they have monitoring 24/7, 365 by a SOC. Now, to educate the listeners, I'm not talking about or referring to the socks that we put on our feet. SOC is a security operations center. Basically, it's a facility that houses cybersecurity analysts that watch over your organization, watch over your network 24, 365 to see if there's any sort of malicious activity.
Excellent. And then why is that monitoring so important?
Well, we all need to understand that it's not a matter of if your organization is going to get hit with some sort of a cyber breach or attack, it's a matter of when. The most important part when something like that takes place, Matt, is to understand how fast can we mitigate that issue. When you have a team of analysts watching over things, keeping a close eye on the network, we have a very short window, right, to make sure that they can't pull any of your data. So it's always good to make sure that we have that foothold in place. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense. And so what sort of things should an organization put in place to protect themselves in the future?
So that's a good question. There's different ways to look at things, but like I mentioned before, ultimately having that monitoring in place is where every business, large and small, is going to want to end, right? They're going to want to end up there. Oftentimes people want to put in some sort of a risk assessment first, right? A risk assessment is going to help identify those gaps and help an organization even become compliant, right? Depending upon if you're an organization that follows HIPAA, if you're a financial institute that has to go by FINRA, they all have different types of things that they need to comply with, right? So those are all potential risks. So by doing a risk assessment, we can kind of go through what those pros and cons are and address those.
And the risk meaning if they become not compliant, if this, let's say there's a breach and there's access to their data or information, there could be a compliance issue there as well.
100%, which could ultimately lead to what? A breach, right? That's the worst thing, and also fines.
Right. All right. And with cybersecurity, what is ultimately the goal? Is it to prevent attack from ever happening? How should an organization think about cybersecurity?
Well, unfortunately, preventing an attack from ever happening is just not realistic, right? How often is a threat actor trying to get into your organization? I don't know, but they likely will if they really want to. Remember, these organizations are not just one or two people sitting behind a screen. These organizations oftentimes have dozens, if not hundreds of people working within that organization, and they have all of the same tools, if not more, than what businesses have, right? It's a very, very lucrative business for them. The goal is to make it as difficult as possible for those threat actors to get into your network. And that's why going with a layered approach is very important here. Back in the day, Matt, most businesses were concerned about losing their internet connectivity, right? Oh my goodness, I can't get to my files or I can't send out emails. Today, losing your internet connectivity is a walk in the park compared to if you were to get hit with a cyber breach, right? Organizations could be down for not just hours, but days, if not weeks, right? So like I mentioned, It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's okay. We have to look at things that it's okay if an organization does get hit, right? But what's not okay is if we don't have the right procedures in place to shorten that runway.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say I'm an organization. I understand the threats are out there. I need to protect myself. What should I look for when I go shopping for service providers and start reaching out?
Well, that's a hard question, right? Every business is different. Big and small. It comes down to what is their risk threshold. It comes down to budget. What is it that they have today? It could be hardware, software driven. So really the best thing is to reach out to a security expert, kind of discuss what your organization looks like, what you have in place today, and we can come up with a roadmap as to what's important to protect first and foremost, and then what are the nice to haves.
Gotcha. All right. And you mentioned it really, a lot of it depends on the organization and what they're doing. Can you give me some examples of how needs of an organization might differ from others? Let's say a manufacturer versus a nonprofit organization versus a financial company. How might those organizations differ from the others?
Right. Well, at the end of the day, data is data, right? So it doesn't really differ all that much. Everybody's data is invaluable to them, right? Whether you're a healthcare organization and you have HIPAA, right? Or you're a financial institute, right? You can have trading documents, law firms, especially, right? They hold a tremendous amount of proprietary stuff. So it doesn't really matter on the organization type. What matters is what they're doing to protect that data. I once had a bakery talk to me about getting cybersecurity monitoring put in place. And at first, my first go around is like, why would a bakery be so concerned with having all of this? And ultimately, it's because some of their recipes are 100 to 150 years old. If someone were to get their hands on those recipes, ultimately that business would be gone, right? Their recipes would be out to the world. So think about it for whatever your organization is. What are your valuable or invaluable assets? What do we need to do to protect those? What would happen if those got into the wrong hands? And things are changing so fast now, especially with AI, with these cybersecurity experts. Back in the day, and when I say back in the day, within the last 2 years or so, 3 years, these threat actors would spend a few months combing through everything to try to find what they could. That timeline has sped up tremendously. And now what happens is if they collect your data, which they're going to do, and you do have the backups in place, which oftentimes companies do have backups there, but they're not checking those backups. And these threat actors get a hold of them and it's ultimately not backing up. But in the event that they are, I don't want to pay that ransom. Well, nowadays it's a little different because that's fine. Don't pay me, but I'm going to sell it on the dark web, right? So they're going to get their money from you guys one way or another. So again, by having the proactive monitoring in place, it really reduces that risk big time. And again, going back to what we were talking about, having that risk assessment done is also very important, right? Because you need to understand where those gaps are.
Yeah, from a cyber, you mentioned like cyber extortion or ransomware. We're seeing on the insurance side, when it comes to the data is becoming more and more valuable. And the more valuable the data is, the higher the ransom.
And getting it back is, listen, getting the data back isn't as easy as it sounds either, right? You know, the analogy I'll explain is those 1,000-piece puzzles we put on our dining room table. Well, when it's all together, that's your network, right? That's all your data. Well, when the bad guy comes and they take it, and then they do give it back to you, they're giving it back to you, but it's in the box all apart. You still need to take the time to put it all back together, right? So again, and that's probably one of the reasons why cyber insurance is also so important these days, right? Cyber insurance isn't going to prevent a breach, right? But what cyber insurance is going to do is help the financial part of this whole thing. Because it's not just a matter of, hey, am I going to pay to get my data back through a ransom? Am I going to put it back myself? There's a lot of time that goes into this. Organizations these days, they're usually understaffed from an IT perspective. Okay, so I've seen organizations with 100 or 200 employees with 2 or 3 different IT people. That's it.
Right.
And what happens if you have to restore images on 200 or 300 machines and you have 2 or 3 people? That's a very long time, especially if it's international facilities, if they're all over the United States. So now you have to hire third parties to help assist with this. And it's not cheap. It's very costly.
That's a very good point. So let me just ask you this. If you have some basic controls and you have cyber insurance in place, is cybersecurity really all that necessary?
100%. Cybersecurity should probably be the top priority of any business. Any business. It doesn't matter what they are. because again, it's your data. And every business today, we talk about this in all of our meetings. Every business today is really a technology business first, if you think about it, right? Even go to the car wash, it's all electronics, right? But businesses, law firms, everything was driven from data. Healthcare, right? I mean, operation rooms, right? When you're doing procedures, it's all robotics. Manufacturing is one organization that gets hit quite a bit with ransom. Why? Because unfortunately, a lot of their technology is older. But again, it's robotics. So it doesn't make a difference.
Gotcha. From your experience, can you just provide maybe like one or two examples of where you've seen a cybersecurity issue with a client and kind of what that looked like going through the process?
Sure. So, I mean, unfortunately, I've been involved with way too many breaches. Depending upon what the company looks like, we had a very large manufacturing company that had multiple locations all over the US and international. And on a Friday at 5 p.m., a ransom note popped up on the IT director's screen that to please call this number, right? And believe it or not, it's like a call center. You call them up, you give them a code, and they'll tell you, hey, we're looking for $10 million. And that's when you have to, unfortunately, get different teams and parties involved to kind of go through an incident response engagement, right?
They have a call center because they have so many calls
crazy.
coming in.
It's insane. It's call centers. It's trying to get to the right people to do negotiations, and then you want to make sure that they do have your data. So you ask them for a snippet of it. So it's a very long, lengthy process, a very expensive process, because while all this is going on, your employees are just sitting there, right? You can't just tell them to go home for the day and not pay them. This isn't their problem, right? So this manufacturing organization, they lost everything. And when I mean everything, Matt, I'm talking about email capabilities, finance. They couldn't do any POs. They couldn't do any processing. They couldn't do any shipping. All of their robotics were down. Their security cameras, the CCTV was down. They had a voice over IP system, right? So zero phone communication. When I tell you the rug came out from underneath this company, that's an understatement, right? And it took them a few weeks to get back on board. And even with that, it was a few months later, they were still on crutches. Luckily for them, they did have a cyber insurance policy, right? So that helped from the financial side, but it did not help at all when it came to trying to get orders out, trying to do the manufacturing of those products, trying to get payments in. All of that stuff just halts.
Right.
So that's one example. And another one, which is often, is they call it man-in-the-middle attacks. When a threat actor gets into the customer's email, this is where a lot of wire fraud happens, especially with law firms, right? We've seen this a bunch of times where I'm going to send out a wire. I'm sitting at my closing, I go to send out a wire, and the bank says, I haven't received it. And they say, well, I sent it. And you look at the numbers that were sent, and it's completely wrong, right? So having a Microsoft 365 assessment done, for example, is something that a lot of organizations are doing these days. Everything's done on email, right? So you want to protect that. And when you have an organization that's doing SOC as a service, right, Security Operations Center as a service, that's typically one of the things that they're looking at is the email as well. So again, it's multiple layers. But it all starts with the users. Security awareness training, that is a huge help. It typically takes a few months for the employees to start realizing to think before you click, but it works, and it works very well. And that will really help mitigate a lot of the risk by itself, to be honest with you. But again,
right.
People are busy. We go through things, right? The holidays are here. Everybody's getting shipments, FedEx. Oh, let me click on my package. And it turns out that email wasn't from FedEx. It looked like FedEx, but it wasn't. And then they clicked on it, and next thing, they're downloading malicious software on the back of your machine that you don't even realize is taking place.
Right? You mentioned AI. Any other trends that you're seeing out there in the cybersecurity standpoint?
Well, voice recognition is a big thing now. So that's getting smarter and smarter. You could Google me or somebody else, a leader of the organization. Chances are they've done some sort of a seminar or something, and they can basically mimic the sound of their voice. So that's becoming a problem right now. because it would be like me calling you up saying, "Hey, Matt, I need the password for X, Y, and Z," and you said, "No problem, Mark," and you give it to me. So things are evolving, and AI is a big part of it. And when I say a big part of it, it's really the time frame. It's cutting the time of all of this down drastically. And that is what's not on our side. Time is not on our side when somebody breaches into one of our networks. We need to have the ability to act fast and swiftly.
Do you have any good news for us in this crazy time we're in?
Yeah, the good news is that there are plenty of tools and organizations out there that customers can take advantage of, big ones and small ones. I mean, cybersecurity, as we know, is a layered approach. You can't go into this and say, "Hey, I want to do all of this today." It's just not feasible. But getting a plan together, putting a budget together for the next 3 years, saying, "Hey, this is where we want to start. This is where we want to end. What type of funds do we need to allocate towards this?" That's probably the best practice. But ultimately, you're going to want to end up with having monitoring on that network, some which way, shape, or form.
Excellent. Listen, those are all my questions. Anything that I should have asked but didn't?
No, I think it's spot on. I mean, ultimately, organizations are starting to realize now how important cybersecurity is. It's no longer a want, it's a must have, it's a need. You have to have cyber. And the CEOs, the CFOs, the leaders that are out there that don't understand this, they're the ones that are unfortunately going to get hit with this hard. And it's
right.
It's all eyes on them, unfortunately, when it happens. It's not going to be the IT people. And that's a big differentiator. IT people, they're IT. They're not cybersecurity experts. Oftentimes people think, "Hey, my IT people could do it, or my MSP, they should be handling all of my cybersecurity." That is not the case. They are two different things. IT organizations have a NOC, which is a network operations center, and cybersecurity has a SOC, a cybersecurity operations center. So,
right,
big differences.
Gotcha. Well, Mark, this has been insightful. I appreciate your time. Thanks
Matt.
for being on.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your time as well.